Hi there, my name's Liv. In this week's video, I'm going to be showing you how to make this cat ear beanie. It's a really easy project to make, so if you're a beginner, don't be scared. I will show you through every single step. First thing you're going to do is choose what color yarn you want to use. For this one, I'm going to be using this light blue, a white, and this variegated blue and purple yarn. For this, you're also going to need a 4mm crochet hook. First thing we're doing is a slip knot. This is how I do them. I make a little loop and fold it over onto the longer part of the yarn into a pretzel, and then I grab the inside part of the pretzel with my hook like so, making sure the knot itself is tight but the loop on the hook is still fairly loose. I keep the short part of the tail underneath like this, and then the first thing we're going to do is make the band of the hat. So for this one, I'm choosing to do 8 slip stitches, but you can choose to make the band longer, you can make it shorter. If you want to be able to roll up the band, I would recommend at least doubling this. But for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm going to be doing 8. And this is what 8 looks like after I've done all the chains. Each one of these little pairs of strings are going to be the stitches that we're going to be working our yarn into. So when I get to the end of the piece, I like to do an extra chain, basically to act like the first single crochet on this row. So I do 1 chain and I could skip these 2 here and move on to the 3rd chain from my hook. What we're going to be doing for the hat rim is called ribbing. So basically for this, what you're doing is single crocheting, but you're only single crocheting into the back loop. So for each stitch, we have 2 loops, and we're only going to be going into one of those loops, the one that is at the back of the work like this. So you have to find your 2 pairs, like this one, and go in through the back loop, only the loop that is far away from you. Start a single crochet by inserting the hook into the stitch, grabbing some yarn and pulling it through, so you have 2 loops on your hook, and then you're going to grab more yarn. You're going to pull it through those 2 loops until you have 1 loop on your hook, and you're going to continue doing this all the way down all 8 of those stitches until you get to the end, going in just the back loop. So insert the hook, grab some yarn, pull it through, grab some more yarn and pull it through those 2 loops. Continue this all the way until the end, till your work looks something like this here. Same thing at the end here, we're going to do a single chain and we're going to turn the work around. I like to turn it around this way so that the working string kind of crosses over the top. I find it makes the loop work best. So this is going to be acting like the single crochet for this first stitch. And we're going to going into this 2nd stitch here, looking down from the top because we still want to go into that back loop only. So one thing I definitely recommend is sort of lining up the top row of stitches within your fingers like this, so it's very easy to grab onto that back loop. We're going to keep doing single crochets along these stitches all the way to the end. And you're going to keep doing this for quite a few rows. One thing first is I do want to draw attention to the stitch at the end. It tends to get a little squished and it's kind of hard to tell where the threads are. So this is really why I like to rotate in that very specific way. It makes it a little bit easier to tell where your end stitch is. And really make sure that you're always doing 8 stitches across. I do want to show you guys how to be able to tell where your rows are. With ribbed crochet, it is a little bit harder to tell them apart. So whenever we're looking at this piece here, we have our foundation chain right here, which is not a row. We have our first row here. On this side, it's concave. Whenever we flip it over, it's convex. It comes out towards you. So this is how you can tell where your rows are. Look for this big ridge. Here is another row. So there are 2, on one side convex, one side concave. And then we of course have our row at the end, which is the one that we are currently working into. So we have 3 rows here and our foundation chain. Now we're just going to continue working in those back loop only, single crochet stitches along these 8 stitches. You're going to keep doing this for however many rows it takes for this to stretch around your head. We're not working on number of rows here, we're focusing on the circumference of your own head. So really, while you're working on this, every once in a while, just wrap the band around your head, see how much longer you have to go, keeping account of the fact that this stretches a lot. This is how much ribbed crocheting stretches by, so whenever you're trying on the band, just make sure you're taking into account the fact that it does stretch. Don't be like me and wrap it around your head loosely. That is a grave beginner's mistake and will waste you a lot of time. So make sure that you are stretching it out a little bit when you're measuring it on your head. Keep going until you have a band that fits on your head, and I'll show you how to sew the ends together. Try, if you can, to end on a row where the ribbing sort of matches up together. Like, don't end on 2 concave rows, for example. So for attaching the 2 ends of the band into a big loop, first thing we have to do is cut the string that we were using for crocheting. I line them up like this, and conveniently we have 2 tails here, so I'm just going to tie them together like you would tie anything together, just 2 little loopy twisty knots, very basic knot, just to have them together. And we want to line up these stitches along the edge, so I'm going to fold them along the side here, and we're just sort of trying to line up these loops as best as we can, because that is where we're going to be inserting our tapestry needle into. So you're going to do this like a zigzag, going in one side, connecting through the 2 stitches, pull through like this, and then go back through that same side like a zigzag. We're just going to do that along the entire end, and making sure every single loop has a sister loop. We still want there to be 8 stitches, so going to make sure that each stitch is lined up with the other stitch perfectly. And we're going to continue like this all down the end, and then you can tie off the end however you'd like. I usually just do another little loop through and then just kind of like tie it off however I feel. If you have some gapping like this here, also make sure you're tightening everything up, you don't have any weird gaps. And that is our band all done. To clean up these extra strands of yarn here, we can do something called weaving in your ends. So we're basically going to go through along the side, preferably along a row, and just grab any sort of yarn that you can. This is what I was able to do. I did it right along where I stitched up the band, so it's a little bit on the messy side. But you basically just wind your needle through, grab as much yarn as you can, and just pull your extra yarn through there. And then I can cut it off, so I don't need to worry about it unraveling at any point. And just so you guys know, whenever I lay the band down flat, unstretched, it's about 10 inches across, so 20 inches long in total. Now we get to start the striped parts of the hat. So we're going to be going into the sides of the rows that we did. So each place where there is a little convex spot, you'll have a loop like this. In each concave spot, you will have a loop like this. So we're going to be looking for those loops along the side and working into those. We're going to be doing double and half double crochets for this part of the project. So first thing to start off, take your new yarn. I'm going to be using this blue and purple variegated one. And we're going to make a slip knot like we did when we started with the ribs. So we take this slip knot here, insert your hook into the first chunk of loops. Grab that slip knot, tighten it up, and pull it through. We're going to be doing similar to that single crochet and then turn we do, acting as the first stitch, but we're going to do a double. So chain here, 2 stitches instead of 1, and I'll show you how to do the double crochet. So we're going to wrap some yarn around our needle first before inserting it into our stitch. Then we're going to grab some yarn, pull it through, and have 3 loops on the hook. Then we're going to basically do 2 single crochets. Grab some yarn, pull through the first 2 loops, grab some more yarn, and pull through the last 2 loops. So we have 1 loop on our hook. This is how we do a double, and we're going to be doing this all along the sides every single time we're switching to our colored yarn. In this case, I'm using the blue yarn, but if you're going to be doing two different colors, you basically have to choose which row is going to be slightly thicker. I decided to make the blue and purple yarn a little bit thicker. So make sure with this, we're always using double crochet for the colored yarn, and then we're going to be using half double for the white. So keep going along the rim of the hat, working into those end of row stitches. You don't need to be exact with it. Just try and have one stitch for every single row that we did for the ribbing. Keep doing doubles all the way until the end, until you have something like this. Now we're going to join our rounds together by doing a slip stitch into the first single crochet we did. So we're going to insert our hook into that stitch, grab some yarn, pull it through the stitch, and then also pull it through the loop on our hook. Now we can switch to the second color we're using, which for me is going to be white. I'm going to attach this color just by doing a chain with the new color, and then I'm going to be doing a second chain right after that. Even though we're doing half double crochets for this, I still like to do 2 chains at the end. So for a half double, it's very similar to a double crochet. We're going to wrap some yarn around the hook before inserting it into that first stitch. Then we're going to yarn over as usual. Here, when we have 3 loops, instead of yarning over and pull through only 2 loops, we're going to pull through all 3. So we are making a stitch that is exactly halfway between the length of a single crochet and a double crochet. We're going to keep doing these half double crochets all the way along the side using our white color. And then at the end, again, we're going to join those colors together using a slip stitch before switching back to our blue and purple yarn, and we're going to be doing more double crochets with that one. Once you have both of your colors attached, you don't need to cut them off whenever you're switching between the two. You can just have it hang off to the side, and then whenever you're ready for the new color, you can grab that yarn again. Just make sure everything is nice and tight when you're doing this. To finish off this hat, you're going to continue switching between these double and half double crochet rows until you have about 15 rows. For me, I ended on a double crochet row. We're going to do another 3 rows after this, but we're also going to have decreases in each row on either side. So whenever we're laying down the hat flat, on each of these sides, we're going to do a decrease. I like to do this because it creates more of a rounded shape to the ears, but it is not necessary. To do the decreases, we still want them to match with the half double and double crochets we're doing. So if you have a double crochet row, you're going to insert your hook into the first stitch, yarn over and pull through, and then we're going to insert into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, so we have 3 loops, and now we're going to treat it just like a regular double. Yarn over, pull through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the second 2 loops. That's if you're doing a decrease on a double crochet row. If you're doing a decrease on a half double crochet row, we're going to insert our hook into the first stitch, yarn over, insert into the next stitch, yarn over, 3 loops, and yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops, just like we would with a half double crochet. Now I can continue along the side because I'm only going to do that once for each side, so twice per row. I'm going to continue all the way to the end until I do my other decrease, and I'm going to do this for 3 rows total. So what that means is you're going to have 15 rows of regular half double and double crochets, and then your 16th, 17th, and 18th row are all going to be either double or half double crochets again, with the exception they will also have a decrease on either corner, so 2 decreases per row for 6 in total. These measurements, of course, will vary depending on the type of yarn you're using. For this one, I used DK weight yarn, so this was the number of rows that I had. But for this hat, which I made out of black worsted weight yarn, it was much fewer rows. It was like 14 in total instead of 18. So one thing I definitely recommend is try on your hat often and make sure that it fits your head. Make sure you're not making something too big. With all our rows done, we can start stitching up the top of the hat. First, turn the hat inside out and then fold it along the side so we have all of our stitches along the top lined up like so. We're going to be working into the back loop of each side, so the 2 middle stitches like this. For this one, because we're just starting off, we're just going to pull some yarn through and then just do a simple chain. But for every stitch afterwards, we're going to be doing a simple single crochet. So insert your hook into those 2 middle stitches, yarn over, pull through, and then yarn over again. Very important that your hat is inside out for this part. And also you could do slip stitches if you'd like. I just decided to do single crochet stitches. Keep doing this along the entire side, making sure that each stitch has a sister stitch. Don't leave anybody behind. Once you get to the end, you can tie off your yarn and just pull that last loop through so it's nice and tight. And this is what the top is going to look like from the inside. This is what a row of slip stitches looks like. And then this here is what the side of the hat looks like from the inside. So this is where that extra yarn was whenever I wasn't using it between colors. And we're going to weave in all of our ends. So right here I'm weaving in the white. I'm going in through all of these white loops with my tapestry needle. And I'm just going to pull that yarn through all of these loops and then cut off any of the extra that I have, just to make sure that nothing unravels while I'm wearing this colorful hat. With all of our ends weaved in, we can now flip the hat so it's no longer inside out and give it a nice try. I hope you all found this video to be helpful. I've gotten a lot of feedback on my previous fiber arts projects, and a lot of people really wish that I could go into details on how things are done. Just because they weren't my own patterns, I wasn't able to. But now I have my own pattern, so I actually was able to do a full tutorial for you guys. I hope you're able to follow along with me. And I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please consider subscribing, liking my video, commenting. If you have any questions, you can put them down in the comments section, or you could also send me a DM on Instagram. I respond to a lot of people's DMs there. A lot of people reach out asking me for help, and that's where I tend to often respond. If you guys have any recommendations for other projects you'd like me to do, also leave them down there. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys soon.